Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk about Linda McMahon's confirmation hearing and my thoughts on it. As you know, a couple of months ago, we reported on this channel, one of the first to break it, that Linda McMahon, the ex wife of Vince McMahon, former CEO of WWE, former um, member of Trump's cabinet before, prior to his last term. She was the head of the Small Business Administration. Well, we reported that in addition to being a part of his transition team when he first got reelected, that she would be up for another cabinet nomination. That is head of education, the head of the education department for his cabinet. She faced her confirmation hearing, much like the other members of his cabinet, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, Tom Homan. They all faced grilling by the opposition. This is, par for the course for cabinet picks. What are some of my thoughts about it? Well, I feel like a lot of the Democratic congressmen and women gave her that work. They really, grilled her with some really important questions about what are her plans for the Department of Education. What does she plan to do? And she really skirted around a lot of the questions. I feel like she didn't answer the questions directly and forthrightly. Uh, the most important question that she got around was the Ring Boy scandal. Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin uh, was the one who got on her about this. Basically saying that how can she be in charge of the Department of Education? And because her whole thing was, I'm going to separate the women, separate trans women from cis het women, and because I don't want the girls to be abused in the locker rooms. Like I don't want trans uh, trans women to be going who are biological men to be going into women's locker rooms and abusing them and encouraging systematic abuse of young girls, particularly in sports, because this is one of the things that the Trump administration is really pushing heavily is this legislation to remove uh, trans women and trans men from education, this anti-trans initiative. So that's one of the things that Linda brought up. And then Tammy Baldwin responds with, yes, but under your administration, while you were the head of WWE, while you were the CEO of WWE, there was systematic abuse of underage children during your watch. And all you basically did was give Mel Phillips, Terry Garvin, and most of all, Pat Patterson a slap on the wrist during your tenure as head of WWE. And I'm really glad that this was brought up as a counter argument because people may not know, people may be unaware of this scandal. Um, During the time that it happened, uh, even then, the focus, right? Davis says Vince McMahon should be in jail. The focus was on the steroid distribution part of the trial. The sexual scandals that were part of that same whole court case against Vince was never ever brought up. Everybody was focused on the steroid distribution part of it in 1994. He was never brought to justice on charges of the ring boy scandal. That was never brought up. That was completely swept under the rug. Mel Phillips, what he was allowed to do for decades in the WWE is just disgusting. What Pat Patterson was allowed to do for decades in WWE to underage minors and to other wrestlers was completely disgusting. And Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon knew about it. They knew about it and they swept it under the rug, and they did nothing to the people that were involved, especially Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson was let go for a while when the scandal was hot back in 1992. And then he was brought back and he continued to work with the WWF until his death in 2020. And it is well documented that Pat Patterson, and this is not a homophobic witch hunt. This is no more of a homophobic witch hunt than it is a transphobic witch hunt, what the Trump administration is trying to do. WWE and the people at WWE always tried to paint it as a homophobic witch hunt against Pat Patterson whenever anybody would bring up whenever anybody would bring up the Ring Boy scandal, they would say, "Oh, you're only saying that because Pat Patterson is gay." No, nobody cares that Pat Patterson was gay. You know what I mean? It was an open secret that he was gay for decades. Even back when he was working, before he was working in WWE, when he was in the San Francisco territory, people knew that he was gay. That's even going back to his days working in the Boston territory for Tony Santos, when he and Louis Dondero, his longtime partner, first took the hook, got together. That was not an issue. The issue was the abuse. The issue was the sexual harassment of Barry Orton, Randy Orton's uncle, the sexual abuse and of Roddy Piper, when Roddy Piper was a teenager working in the San Francisco territory. And when they hired Pat, they knew about this. They knew about Pat's history going into it. But it was swept under the rug, and they tried to use the social justice bent, saying that the media was coming after Pat because he was gay, or coming after Terry Garvin because he was gay. What Terry Garvin had told that one wrestler, Murray Hodgson, I think his name was. They're watching that porno, and Terry Garvin says to the wrestler, "Oh, I bet your girlfriend doesn't do that." What they were doing on the porno, the guy administering oral sex, he says, "I bet he doesn't do that to you," and telling him that if he wants to keep his job, that he has to sleep with Pat and sleep with Terry Garvin and even sleep with Louis Dondero. Paul Roma tells a story where when he was working in WWE in the late 80s, both Louis Dondero and Pat Patterson approached him about having sex, saying that if they wanted to keep their jobs, he wanted to keep his job, he had to have sex with the both of them. So that is sexual harassment at a highest level. This is grown men, though, but underage boys, that was going on with Mel Phillips. Mel Phillips, as many people know, he had a foot fetish. There were wrestlers that talked about, they walked in the backstage area, saw Mel Phillips masturbating young boys. And all this was going on in WWF's roof, and they knew about it, and they looked the other way about it. Not to mention Ashley Mazzaro. Ashley Mazzaro in 2006, I believe it was, was in Iraq, one of the tribute to the troop shows, and she was sexually assaulted in Iraq. And WWE knew about it. Stephanie McMahon knew about it, and they told her to keep it shut. And that, of course, led to her mental deterioration, which eventually led to her death. So, and she never got justice. Okay. Yeah, I just read it. The messenger. Also, it, she was asked by another senator. She was asked in regards to Black History Month, and Black History subjects. Would Trump defund schools that teach African American history? The senator asked, and Linda McMahon responded, "I'll get back to you on that. This is a class that has been taught," and the lady says, "This is a class that has been taught in public school for decades. They could lose funding. I would like to take a look at these programs. This is only an issue because conservatives have targeted Black history programs for marginalized groups on their war on woke and DEI." Absolutely, I agree with that. Yes, this is another issue regarding education. We know that conservatives want to eliminate what they call CRT, critical race theory, which was not even taught. CRT is not even really, CRT is more for like law school students, right? It's not even taught in public schools. But the fact that she said she'll take a look at it means that they're thinking about putting it on the chopping block, which means they have no regard for minority history, particularly Black history departments, and they consider it a part of DEI. So thank you, Lisa, for that. Absolutely, she would cut it because she's all about defunding things, as is Donald Trump, as is Elon Musk. They're just taking the chopping block to every department that we have, and just basically what the budget is going to look like, essentially in a dream scenario where Donald Trump has everybody that he wants. You'll see RFK get rid of everything health-wise, and Linda McMahon get rid of everything education-wise, and them just eliminating, minority slots and minority positions in their administration. And we knew this was going to happen because this is what Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter in 2022, and her company, the WWE, is also another company that is not particularly minority friendly. In addition, yes, Lisa's correct. They want to get rid of the Department of Board of Ed as a whole. We talked about that in the first video. That is something that they're not telling. And I'm surprised that Bernie Sanders, did not bring this up, because Bernie Sanders is usually, big on the push of social justice. He did not he did not mention this, but they want to get rid of the Board of Education completely, and they want to return funding for education back to the states. Now, this is a terrible idea because when you localize something, right, and you leave it up to the states, what ends up happening is that different states have different laws. So if you leave it up to the states could then make laws to prevent certain people that live in certain districts that have less money from getting an adequate education. And then there's no federal oversight. It sounds great in theory, like, oh, let's just leave everything up to the states, right? And localize everything. But in practice, it doesn't work. It doesn't create a fair situation because not every state is structured the same. See, that was the issue. That was the issue in our country when it came to slavery. That was the issue in our country when it came to gay marriage. That was the issue in our country when it came to desegregation. They wanted to leave everything up to the states, and then also the issue when it comes to Roe v. Wade, and it's an issue with education. If you leave it up to the states, some states will create laws that will be unfair to particular constituents in those states. You understand what I'm saying? So that is a terrible idea. It sounds good in theory, and it's something that the founding fathers wanted. They put it in the Constitution. That is specifically state power. Education. But think of what education was in 1776. And who education was for. We didn't have public schools back then, so you can't really go back to an original interpretation with that. And even the founding fathers found out, when they tried to, after the revolution, they tried to run a government, based on a decentralized government based on the states, and the individual states having the maximum amount of power, and they weren't even able to do it. It's not practical. The more you decentralize the government, the less efficient it runs, and the less resources get to the maximum amount of people. So that's a terrible idea. So what Lisa's bringing up is something different than what David is bringing up, but they're both valid. In a sense, David is saying that Linda shouldn't be allowed to run it because of Linda's abuses. How Linda was, and this is how conservatives are so freaking hypocritical. I'm sorry, conservatives, but you're so freaking hypocritical because you said that Hillary Clinton aided and abetted Bill Clinton in his sexual abuses against women when he was governor of Arkansas and when he was president of the United States. And that might have been true. But what about Linda? Linda is like the conservative Hillary. You know what I'm saying? Like she aided and abetted Vince. She allowed Vince to rape women. She allowed Vince to abuse his employees. She allowed Vince to do all this stuff. She was a co-conspirator with Vince and keeping him in power in the same way that Hillary was for Bill Clinton. Vince was doing just as much of that kind of stuff to women, and Linda knew about it as Hillary, as Bill was, and Hillary knew about it. So, what David's point is that she shouldn't be involved because of what she shouldn't be have this amount of power because of what McMahon has done, and she was a part of it. Lisa's thing is different. Lisa's saying something different. She's saying that she don't care who it is. If they had this idea about the Board of Education, they have the wrong idea, and they shouldn't have these ideas. You know what I mean? I agree with both. I think Linda is the wrong person for the job because of how unethical she is, how evil she truly is. You know what I mean? She's everything that you said Hillary was. Everything, like I said, that conservative said Hillary was, she is that. She, along with Vince, who was it? Going back to the steroid thing, who was it that said to Pat Patterson that was recorded during the steroid trial of saying to Pat Patterson that they got to get rid of George Sahorian, the doctor that was accused of giving the wrestlers steroids because the boys, quote unquote, need their candies. That was Linda. They had Linda on tape for doing that. And why did Linda take over as CEO of WWE after the trial in '94? Because the heat was on Vince. So they had to move him out of his CEO position and put her as the face of the company on the corporate level because him being the face of the company was too much heat on him. So she aided and abetted Vince's abuse of women and Vince's abuse of children and Vince's abuse of his employees and Vince's unethical business practices that we talk about that he has done. And not to mention, see, I don't even care. People look at it like, oh, it's a kangaroo trial because she's in the WWE, and what does she know about education? She was on the Board of Education in Connecticut for a while, and she went to college to be a French teacher, but never became one because she got involved with Vince, and I think he married her when she was 18 or whatever, but she was real young, when they got married. But I don't even care that she was involved with wrestling. If she were qualified and she were an actual good person, it wouldn't matter that she was involved with wrestling. I mean, Jesse Ventura was a great was a good involved with wrestling, but he was a good person and a good politician and fair and good for the state of Minnesota. And I mean, it doesn't matter really. But the fact is that she is a terrible individual. She is horrible, and she is evil. And she's only there because she donated tons of money to Donald Trump's campaign. That's what it takes. You know what I mean? You're basically buying your position into the cabinet. Again, everything that they accused Clinton of in the 90s. Remember Whitewater? The bad real estate deals with Susan McDougal and her husband? We all remember it. But no, Vince gets a pass. And okay, people conservatives are like, oh, well, she's not with Vince anymore. They're divorced. Yeah, they're divorced. Okay. But do you honestly think that Vince getting the charges dropped recently with regards to the Janelle Grant case didn't have anything to do with his friendship with Donald Trump? just crazy. I don't know if she'll be confirmed, but so far, Trump has gotten every pick he's got. These picks have breezed on through. So I don't know, you know, if it'll happen. Triple H, as you can see in the thumbnail picture, was sitting. That's another good person. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, also uh, free on corruption charges. Why? Because despite being a Democrat in name only, a Democrat in name only, like he's supposedly a Democrat, but he acts like a Republican. He collaborates with Tom Homan, the border czar, with regards to migrants. He sides with Donald Trump. He kisses Trump's ass. So he's a Democrat in name only. He got off, and now he may switch parties when he runs again in what's that? I think it's next year, right? 2026. So apparently the message is if you kiss Trump's ass and you suck up, oh, this year? Okay, yeah, this year. Um, I don't know. If Drake gets brought to trial, he may try to kiss Trump's ass too and get out of it. I don't know. You know what I mean? But if you kiss Trump's ass, you'll get in good with Trump, you're off the chopping block. But this is the story, man. Triple H sitting behind his mother-in-law. Shane is there. Stephanie, and then they use the kids. Okay, David is saying Vince McMahon is not that evil. Nikola Ceausescu is way more evil than Vince. Okay, yeah, David, yeah, I mean, you can't really compare a dictator of a whole country to somebody like Vince. I mean, I know there's levels to this. You know what I mean? I know there is levels. Obviously, Vince is not that evil, but I mean, he was involved in things that are shady. Like, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to accept for us as wrestling fans because let's just face facts. I mean, I'm not Romanian, so Ceausescu's legacy doesn't matter to me. But as a wrestling fan, it's hard for me to accept because I love professional wrestling, and let's just face it, professional wrestling, WWE in particular, wouldn't be where it is today were it not for Vince McMahon. You know, he was purely a visionary. He purely uh had a vision for this business to take this business far. And he ruined a lot of lives doing it, but I mean, you can't make an omelet if you don't break a few legs, right? I mean, break a few eggs, in his case, legs too, I guess. You know what I mean? But uh, that doesn't make him a good person. You know what I mean? Uh, the way that he approaches his employees, the way that he looks at his employees as like slaves. Basically, yeah, they get paid money. You know what I mean? But that's only because he has to. If 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 Vince lived in Roman times, he would have his wrestlers be like the Roman gladiators, the slaves. You know. So, um, I mean, he looks at them basically like cattle. You know what I mean? Like what he did to Owen Hart. Think about Owen Hart. Owen Hart dies, falls from the ring, falls to his death, rather than stopping the show, right? He lets the show go on. He scrapes Owen Hart's body off of the pavement and continues the show. Now, his reaction was that I can't stop the show because I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and there might be a riot if I stop the show. So it's showing you one of two things. It's showing you one, that he is evil and he doesn't care if one of his employees, an employee that has been with him for a number of years, drew him a lot of money, made him a lot of money, died right in the ring, and another human being. And two, he's showing you that he has complete contempt for his audience. That he believes that his audience is so unintelligent and so buffoonish and so unsophisticated that they would riot rather than see the show stopped and postponed because one of the performers just died. You know what I mean? Like, that is such a lame excuse if I ever heard one. And then he puts the wellness policy in place after Eddie Guerrero's death in 2005. And what does he do? He admits under pressure that the wellness policy is only for PR. They don't really care about the wellness of the wrestlers. They just pretend they do because, you know, they want to look good to the public. But if it was up to them, they wouldn't have a wellness policy because they don't consider the wrestlers as people. They consider them as intellectual properties, right? So that lets you know everything you need to know about him as an individual, as a businessman. So, okay, on a scale of who's evil, David, I would say that yes, Ceausescu is totally evil. He's a communist dictator. He was a brutal dictator of Romania. But when it comes to businessmen, you know, particularly not politicians, but businessmen, I would say that Vince ranks up there as pretty an evil bastard in his realm, at least in the wrestling business, and how he treats his wrestlers and how he treats people, you know, under his employ. So, I mean, is he Hitler? No. Is he Nicolo Ceausescu? No, he's not. But he's Vince. You know, like he's not Jesus Christ either. You know what I mean? Like he definitely did some evil shit. You know what I mean? To his wrestlers. You know what I mean? And WWE is never going to be able to escape that image of Vince. Vince is the father of WWE. Everything good that WWE is associated with, all the work they do for people with disabilities, which that was brought up in a deposition too, that this will affect people with disabilities if they get rid of the Board of Education, because they'll get rid of a lot of IEP-centered education that people with disabilities desperately need, that people like Henry Viscardi and other luminaries that were fighters for education, equal education for individual disabilities, fought for over the years will be completely obliterated under Donald Trump's and Linda McMahon's administration. So they could talk about how much they cherish and love people with disabilities all they want, but in actuality, their policies don't bear that out. But anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, David and Lisa, for contributing. Love you guys. Peace. And I'll be talking about the halftime show in the next video. So look out for it.